So, my name's Joe Payne. This is called Political Pain, this show I do here. I'm live streaming on Friday. This is December 11th. We got some big Central Coast news here. Now, you can look to previous videos of mine about the whole situation that happened in San Luis Obispo around a Black Lives Matter protest with Tianna Arata facing numerous charges for, leading a protest that included blocking traffic and a couple incidents with cars. There was one specific incident with a car that I did interviews with people who witnessed it directly. You can check that video out as well. About there was a car that had its back window smashed by a skateboard that one of the protesters had, of course. But there was also what the law enforcement and local media failed to report correctly or accurately was that this car was accelerating into protesters. And so this was something that very divisive in our community. A lot of the right wing and the far right in our community on the Central Coast that people maybe were a little naively think wasn't here or wasn't as bad as they thought it might be, reared its head very much so when this whole incident happened. And Tianna Arata is a protester. Again, she's a young black woman who was, basically they tried to make an example of her. SLO County District Attorney Dan Dow attempted to make an example of her. The SLO PD tried to hand down 5 felonies to her. Dan Dow brought those down to misdemeanors. But even then, he tried to do all of that. But what a lot of people were talking about as this all happened was, yes, the police were dishonest. The SLO PD was found directly being dishonest. The local CHP chapter was found being dishonest about the actions of the protesters. But there was this weird legal framing that Dan Dow was attempting to apply to this whole situation. And that was that blocking traffic, protesters standing in the street and blocking traffic, was somehow a violation, a constitutional violation of motorists' right of free movement, trying to say that these protesters engaging in civil disobedience, which is blocking traffic, were somehow robbing people of their constitutional rights of freedom of movement. Pretty out there. If you look to my previous video, I watched watched some footage of Dan Dow at an event at a winery. And Dan Dow is super hardcore Christian. And he was talking about how he would not enforce, this is early on in the pandemic, the closure orders for churches, for houses of worship. Basically declaring SLO County a sanctuary, county for sanctuaries, right? For people to congregate together in their churches and, sing and blow particulates into each other's faces and breathe in, spread the virus. And in that video, he specifically said, First Amendment rights are protected in San Luis Obispo County. And of course, a lot of people, progressives, when this whole Tianna Arata stuff started, had to ask, what about the First Amendment right to assembly, right? And people made the excuse. It wasn't peaceful assembly, wasn't it? They smashed this car's window with a skateboard, again neglecting that this car was accelerating into people. And this is a meme that the right has pushed that, well, if you just see protesters, I fear for my life, I need to crash into them, right? So there's a lot of bad faith stuff going on here. But the big news today, and subsequently charges followed for other people involved in the protest. But big news today for Tianna Arata and others facing charges from Dow, Dow's district attorney's office. Boom. SLO DA office disqualified from Tianna Arata case due to Dow fundraiser, judge rules. I would say due to Dan Dow's obvious political bias. And I talked a lot about this. Dan Dow is hyper-conservative. He's hyper-religious. He's a far-right evangelical style conservative. So, and how do you think he feels as a far right? He's also a veteran, and he's in law enforcement as the district attorney. How do you think he feels about the Black Lives Matter movement? Well, I'll tell you what. This judge knows how he feels about the Black Lives Matter movement, and this judge ruled that the way that he feels is so slanted and so biased, and what he's done just politically around this whole situation. He can't handle this case, and neither can his entire office, because the office is so small. Anybody in that office knows Dan Dow, so they don't get to do it anymore. So this is a big victory for Tianna Arata. You know, a lot of people looked at this and said, this guy's throwing the book at her. He's trying to make an example of her. So this is from the SLO Tribune. This is my last story before I hit the paywall. But this is by Matt Fountain. Matt Fountain's a great reporter. I speak highly of him. We used to work for the same media company. And yeah, he's great. So I trust his reporting on a lot of stuff. So this is really interesting when we go into this. That's Tianna Arata. So a San Luis Obispo Superior Court judge handed a major victory to a group of Black Lives Matter protesters on Friday, disqualifying the San Luis Obispo County District Attorney's Office due to a clear conflict. Quote. That was clear conflict in quotes. Superior Court Judge Matthew Guerrero on Friday ruled that the entire county district attorney's office is disqualified from prosecuting the multi-co-defendant case due to the elected district attorney Dan Dow's outspoken activism for causes opposed to the Black Lives Matter movement. Yeah, imagine that. That's an ad, who cares? So this is really interesting. So there were a few things, really quick. There were a few things that Dan Dow did before all of this. Wrong screen, my apologies. So there were a few things that Dan Dow did before all of this that made me go, this guy's biased. Like, there's no way he should be trying this case. So one thing he did was he sent a message, or he did a post on Facebook in this group, Protect Paso. There were a few of these groups when Black Lives Matter resurged for different cities in the area that are called Protect this area, Protect that area. And these are right-wingers who claim that, well, we got to protect, all the local property from Antifa because they're coming in buses and they're going to be taking everything, they're going to be destroying everything, right? In Rio Grande, there were dudes with, AR-15s on the roofs of businesses as the protest, a daytime protest walked by. I had a piano student in one of those protests, a kid, right, who's just part of the organic Black Lives Matter movement, right? Just wanted to join and show support, menaced by men with guns, who were involved in one of these groups. Anyway, Dan Dow posted the Protect Paso group, and he had this big explanation of why he felt he needed to explain to them why he had not gone with felonies, but rather misdemeanors against Tianna Arata. The right wing in this area was super upset about that. And this was at a time when Dan Dow wasn't taking any questions on this case from local media, but he felt he needed to answer to the right wingers in a private Facebook group. Pretty telling. This was all used in this case to set up, to help set up. It's not even getting to the piece of evidence that the judge cites as this is disqualifying. The other thing Dan Dow did is he went to an event. This was New California, which is literally a secessionist group. This is a group that wants California, they're trying to start a state within a state. And they had none other than Candace Owens speak at this event. Candace Owens is very extreme. She famously went before Congress and speaking in opposition to experts on right-wing white nationalist domestic terrorism, and Republicans invited her on this special panel related to that subject, that issue, to just say it doesn't exist. This is all a Democrat lie. Candace Owens will always show up wherever she's needed to say the most extreme things that will help the right. Anywho, so this whole Tianna Arata case is happening. In the midst of that, Dan Dow goes to this, again, a secessionist event. This is a far-right extreme group that wants to secede from California, literally. And this is going to come back later in the show when I talk about the Supreme Court decision with the Trump election, or with Trump's efforts to subvert the election, overturn it. But so Dan Dow, very right-wing, hardcore right-wing guy. But none of that was even the thing that turned it for the judge. That was all just the background, the setup to what really did it in for him, to why he can't try Tianna Arata anymore. And that was this. At issue was an email sent to Dow's supporters by his wife and paid for by his re-election campaign days after his office filed charges against alleged protest organizer Tianna Arata that sought financial donations and claimed that Dow was, quote, leading the fight against the, quote, wacky defund the police and social justice movement. This is from the judge. The email established a clear conflict of interest, Guerrero said in court Friday. By delivering this fundraiser email to potentially tens of thousands of people immediately after filing the charges, Mr. Dow sought political and professional benefit and campaign contributions in conjunction with the prosecution of the above entitled cases. So here we have a district attorney. This is SLO County, San Luis Obispo, California, District Attorney Dan Dow, filing charges and within days trying to get campaign contributions off of it, campaigning on it. This is corruption, people. That's corrupt. I'm sorry, but you know, and this is the thing. The right will say, "What's the big deal?" and you know, what? But her emails, or they'll come up with some whataboutism. But that's corrupt, in my opinion. If you're a prosecutor, you don't just get to try to campaign within days off of a case. You know, if it's campaign season and you want to go over cases that you've won or that you attempted, you know, as a prosecutor, I attempted to such and such and this and that. That's one thing. But this guy, he's not campaigning right now. It's not campaign season for him. But he's trying to earn support and probably donations from his supporters just based on charging this young black activist. Okay. In a statement Friday afternoon, Dan Dow said he, quote, respectfully and strongly disagrees with the findings. And, quote, decision to recuse the district attorney from prosecuting criminal activity that occurred during this summer's protest. There's absolutely no conflict in this case, he said in the statement. Just not true. It's absolutely not true. There is. To the contrary, while I've been personally attacked on many occasions since the arrest of these cases, I've continued to conduct my duty in a manner that is above reproach, without bending to popular opinion and public pressure. I'm sorry. He felt he had to bend to the popular pressure from the conservative Protect Paso group, and he had to answer to them after this. I remember that. Here's Judge Guerrero. There's a few quotes from here I wanted to bring in. So yeah, there are a few cases, a few people who are a part of co-defendants in this case. Unfortunately, Elias Bautista of Santa Maria, where I'm from, he is not a part of this. When they were arresting Tianna, they kind of rushed in on her, a big crowd of SLO PD. At the end of the day, Elias attempted to help her, and he was thrown to the ground by a SLO PD officer, and I believe he kicked at him and hit him in the groin. So they are charging him with assaulting a police officer. So I hope I wish him luck with that. So this is really interesting. Let's see, Guerrero approved a defense request for the DA's investigative reports and other evidence that would show whether it was discriminatory when deciding. So Tianna Arata's lawyers are going to get all of the stuff that the SLO district attorney with Dan Dow's office and the SLO PD have assembled in investigating this. So I want to see those emails. Let's see the emails, right? Let's see. There's a few other things. So this is looking like it's going to be passed to. Here's Tianna during the protest. It looks like this is going to be passed to the state attorney general, and the state attorney general's office kind of has already signaled they have little interest in really trying this case. Because the case itself is biased. I mean, let's be real. The SLO PD tried to pin the crimes of others on Tianna Arata. They felt that pressure from that. It was obviously a thin case, so they brought in these other defendants. But really, these are all, they again singled out the black activists, the leadership of this event and of this protest that blocked the 101. This was not the first SLO County protest to block the 101. There were a few of these, but this was the first one where they had this really punitive attack on the organizers. So, yeah, so she had co-defendants to face charges, all this stuff. Let's see. Yeah, this is some of the stuff. While the county district attorney's office argues the protesters led by Arata held residents, quote, hostage on the highway and elsewhere around the downtown area, the defense has argued in court documents the prosecution, quote, would severely chill lawful assembly and freedom of speech and is not even remotely ethical. And the other thing that's interesting, too, about this is in a case that has attracted national attention, at least one of the prosecution's alleged victims publicly accused the district attorney's office of trying to convince him he was victimized by the July 21st protests despite his objections. So Dan Dow's office, here's Dow, Dan Dow's office was trying to tell one of the people sitting in their car, stuck in traffic, that they were a victim. And this guy came out publicly and said, I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim of any crime. I was just sitting there. End of story. And said that Dan Dow here and his people were pressuring him to say that he was victimized by this. So this right here is, this shows the bias of prosecutors, of the justice system. This guy, Dan Dow, is super right-wing conservative. And he makes no secret about it. It's not, I'm all for people not making a secret of their politics. I'm a progressive journalist. I'm on the left, quite on the left. I let people know that straight up. I let people know that up front because I'm clear about it. Dan Dow is open about his politics. And now we see how open he is. He's hanging out at a pro-secession event from California, New California. He's buddy-buddy with Candace Owens. He was saying on Twitter, like, basically he wants her to run for president or something like that. Or he might have said something more simple, like, there's a bright future for conservative movement with Candace Owens. Jay Coleman just commented, that's messed up. You're right, Jay, it's messed up. This guy, he was trying to make an example of Tianna Arata and the other activists involved in this protest. And now it's been ruled that he can't try this case because of his obvious bias. And let's see, there's more from that email, the email that really the final nail in his coffin of prosecuting this case. So let's see, prior conflict of interest. The judge said a prior conflict of interest makes it impossible for him to act, in an unbiased way. He wrote in his written ruling, the court is to consider whether there is a fact of conflict of interest, blah, blah, blah. In making decisions, Guerrero wrote that he considered several instances where Dow made comments or attended events that showed bias against the Black Lives Matter movement. In his written ruling, Guerrero lists a Dow appearance on a talk show hosted by a far-right group that called the movement a Marxist group who promote cop killings, prostitution, anti-Semitism, anarchy, and the suppression of speech and religion. So, yeah, Dan Dow went on a super hardcore right-wing radio show to talk about the neo-Marxists. And, just think of whatever Alex Jones fever dream, Jordan Peterson, the neo-Marxist deconstructionists are coming. They're going to take away my binary pronouns, right? So these people are siloed. Here he is at New California. See, New California State. I ran into somebody once, a conservative, who was like, have you heard about this? It's a state within a state because Gavin Newsom is so unconstitutional, bad man. Now we have a state within a state. And they really think they've started a new state within California. They're trying to secede from California. It's nuts. So the judge noted a lengthy post written by Dow on September 4th, in which he explained his filing decision against Arata to a private conservative Facebook group while declining to comment on the case. That's what I talked about, Protect Paso. So this is all just leading up to this email. So this is from his wife to gain support, political support on this case. A prosecutor running on a case within days of filing charges. Quote, Dan needs to know now more than ever that you support him And he really needs your financial support so he can keep leading the fight in SLO County against the wacky defund the police movement and anarchist groups that are trying to undermine the rule of law and public safety in our community. Wendy Dow wrote in an email which stated it was, quote, paid for by Dan Dow for District Attorney 2022. We are 2 years out from this election, and he, within days of filing charges against Tianna Arata, is trying to raise money on it. I mean, that's corrupt. I'm sorry, people. That's just corruption. The email continued, quote, we had planned this kickoff re-election campaign fundraiser to be this month, but due to COVID and all the crazy protest activity, we were not able to pull it off. Your support will help ensure that Dan will continue in spite of the defund the police and George Soros type opposition happening against DAs all over the state and nation. This is the judge. The statement used inflammatory terms such as anarchist, crazy, and wacky, which is an extrajudicial statement made to potential jurors in an attempt to sway them and get them to make a financial contribution, Guerrero wrote in his ruling. This interferes with the defendant's rights to a fair trial. The men and women charged here are entitled to a prosecution not clouded by political or personal advantage to the prosecutor, Guerrero continued. This is especially pointed in a case where all defendants are protesting injustice and systemic bias. The court must protect all parties' right to due process and seek justice. This ain't a bad judge. Judge Guerrero's not bad. I mean, it's pretty basic stuff. You shouldn't be able to be so nakedly partisan and nakedly political in a prosecution. And so, you know, this is, and I say it, I sing it from the rafters. Say it with me again, everybody. Law enforcement is not a neutral, politically neutral institution. Law enforcement is absolutely political, and they have always, and they continue to swing conservative. And as the United States has gone full, you know, I don't want to use any, you know, hurtful terms. It's gone nuts off of Trumpism, off of Trump and MAGA, as the right has gone further into crazy town. Alex Jones, you know, Candace Owens, all of this stuff. This is what we get. This is what we get. I mean, you know, the Dan Dow. Well, let's take a look at his Twitter page, because I think he was tweeting about this. I'm on Dan Dow's Twitter page. He released a statement, it looks like, to recuse an elected district attorney chosen by the voters of San Luis Obispo County to enforce the law without any evidence of actual conflict undermines the role and independent nature of an elected prosecutor and sets a dangerous precedent. You know, I think it sets a dangerous precedent that this guy is openly against the Black Lives Matter movement, and he's basically throwing the book at every level he can at this 20-year-old activist and her friends. That's what I think is a bit out of line. Jay Coleman, they are merely contrarians to progress. Absolutely, absolutely. But, I mean, the right has gone farther and farther right over the years. I mean, it's not, there's not a whole lot of continuity. I mean, there is, but they are contrarian. It's interesting when you hear a right winger. You know, if you just start to talk about history or basic understanding of facts, to go, oh, so woke, right? And so they do have a knee-jerk reactionary impulse to delegitimize what it is you're saying. Hey, look, Confederacy is trending. Gee, I wonder why. So yeah, very, very interesting. So that's that story. You know, SLO County District Attorney Dan Dow. I was saying it in the beginning. You can look to my past videos. I did interviews with protesters involved with the protests and who directly witnessed the car that had its windshield smashed. And again, the CHP lied about the car accelerating into protesters. They didn't seem to mention that.